These are dark times, there is no denying. Our world has perhaps faced no greater threat than it does today. But I say this to our citizenry. We, ever your servants, will continue to defend your liberty and repel the forces that seek to take it from you.
You're listening to the Steven Tauriello Show, building a platform of liberty for people in search of truth with a dash of hope and a life worth living. The Steven Tauriello Show. And now, here's Steven.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. Joe Biden is angry over Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. He says now people have no notion of what information is true. These people are incredible. The projection is unfortunate, actually. So Joe Biden sat down for a one-on-one interview with ProPublica's John Harwood to address, quote, threats to democracy, the Supreme Court, and other issues. I am so tired of these people saying everything else is a threat to democracy when they are the biggest threats to democracy right now. These people, democracy has never been threatened more than it has in the last 2.5 years. Since 2020, since the elections, since now that almost half of Americans don't trust our elections. That's the highest ever recorded. So who's been in power the last 2.5 years? Who is rigging their primaries so RFK Jr. can't run as a Democrat? Who is it? Who is rigging the primaries in their own party? I would say that is the Democrats, and that is the Biden administration. Who is, trying to imprison his political opposition? That would be Joe Biden. Who's been locking up Republicans for the last 2.5 years? That would be Joe Biden. Who has essentially rigged our judiciary system in Washington, D.C., the now corrupt modern-day Roman Empire? That would be Joe Biden. And look, folks, the list is a mile long. Why these people are so dangerous to democracy. We've never seen anything like this. These people have crossed the Rubicon like 25 times. There is no Rubicon. There's no more Rubicons to cross. These people are off the rocker. They are the biggest threats to democracy. When you have intel agencies, government-funded institutions that sign a piece of paper knowing that it's a lie, but they sign it anyways. When you have those former intel agents sign that letter, giving Joe Biden the ability to lie to the American people just so he can get across the finish line, that, ladies and gentlemen, is a threat to democracy. When you have intel agencies and government institutions that use all the power and weapons that the taxpayer gave them to fight terrorism abroad, now turn their sights on American citizens, that is a threat to democracy. When you have judges that are making insane rulings, won't recuse themselves, are putting court dates, trial dates a day before Super Tuesday, one of the biggest election events in the country during an election period. When you have a judge that sets the trial date a day before Super Tuesday, that, ladies and gentlemen, is a threat to democracy. So, and like I said, the list is a mile long. A mile freaking long of examples of why these people are threats to democracy. So when they say stupid things like this, like, oh, Republicans are threats to democracy, you know what that phrase reminds me of? Is the follow the science phrase. You guys remember that? Follow the science. Republicans are dangers to science. Yeah, who was right on that one? These people are frauds, man. They have been propagandized. They are like brain-dead zombies. They are like a programmable pull-string toy. You program them, and then you just pull the string on them, and then they say things like, there's no evidence. There's no evidence. No evidence. I'm serious. These people are nuts. and then they'll project onto their opponent. It's the classic Saul Alinsky trick. Accuse others of what you are guilty of. It is a tactic. It is a rule that I have been using, I would say, the last 8 years, and it's never let me down. Never let me down. And so when Joe Biden says that people aren't getting information or that people have no notion of what information is true, it's quite the contrary. People are actually starting to get more true information now than ever before. Why? Because they have access to more information. They have the ability to go to different outlets like this one and podcasts and other podcasts and YouTube channels and Rumble channels. There's this thing called alternative media, which I've been telling you guys, it is the biggest threat to these people's corrupt establishment that they've ever seen. And don't get it twisted, it is a threat to them, and they see it. They see alternative media as a threat, trust me. And so Biden is not happy with Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. So Elon Musk purchased Twitter last October for $54.20 per share, or about $44 billion. He immediately fired Democrat Deep State Protectors CEO Parag Agrawal, finance chief Ned Siegel, and Vijay Gadde. The Democrat Deep State media complex lost control over the flow of information after Elon Musk purchased Twitter. Yep. This is why they're targeting Elon Musk. This is why they are targeting him. They are trying to destroy him, just like they're trying to destroy Donald Trump. Do the Democrats not make these connections? I'm always shocked by their inability to establish connections between two different things. You know, they're always accusing the other side of being conspiracy theorists and all this, but these people, they don't think for themselves at all. They have no ability to think for themselves, to think critically. The lack of self-awareness from the Democrat Party is astonishing. Astonishing. These people will say things and never correlate it with anything else. They'll say things like, well, Republicans are threats to democracy. But do they ever think about maybe they're the threats to democracy? Like, does that thought ever cross their mind? This is why it seems like we're living in completely two different realities. Because we are, in a sense. Because these people have been propagandized by their same media outlets, MSNBC, CNN, I call them the Pravda media. Anybody that walks out of the echo chamber of the radical left-wing movement, anybody that steps out of the Democrat echo chamber always gets red-pilled. Always. This is why the Democrats have to censor people. And this is why 70% of the Democrat Party supports government censorship. Is because they know that if you allow alternative media outlets, if you allow alternative speech, ideas, debate, arguments, then it destroys them. It destroys their narrative. It's exactly why colleges and universities don't like dissent. It's why every fascistic regime never likes dissent. It's no different now. The Biden administration is more fascistic than anything we've ever seen. And what do? They call Trump the fascist. Republicans are the fascists. These people have brought this country closer to fascism than any other time in this nation's history. We are really witnessing the rise of fascism in this country. And it's all the Democrats. And so it's no wonder why these people don't like alternative media. It's no wonder why these people want to censor other people. If you're telling the truth, I say this all the time, if you're telling the truth, it's easier to tell the truth than it is a lie. It just is. This is moral lesson 101. We all learn this when we're kids. When we're children, we learn this. It's harder to lie and keep that lie going than it is to tell the truth. When you lie, you are weaker. It makes you a weak person. And as time goes on, it's harder to keep those lies. It's harder to maintain that lie. Okay, this is why interrogators put people in the room for hours. Hours. Is because all they're waiting for is for a slip up in the story. And when that happens, boom. This is exactly why they want censorship. This is exactly why Democrats want to censor people. If you ever want to know which side is telling the truth, just figure out which side is trying to censor people. It's easy. So recall Vijaya Gadde, an immigrant from India who hates the First Amendment, was behind the censorship of conservatives and Trump supporters. And here is a tweet from her back in 2016. And she says, quote, "I've never met a national politician in the U.S. who is so ill-informed, evasive, and deceptive as Trump." Okay. And she was actually screenshotting, posting on another person's comment who says, "My Sunday column on how we in the news media screwed up and empowered Donald Trump." And he quoted, "As Trump rose, we in the media were lapdogs, not watchdogs." Yeah. So apparently they want to change that completely. So this is why you have the media turning into essentially an arm of the government. It's essentially state-run media now. You have people that worked in the government now working at MSNBC. It's like a revolving door from the upper echelons of our government and the media. And this is why. They used all of their power and resources to get Joe Biden across the finish line. And then once he got across the finish line, all their lies disintegrated. Their entire narrative disintegrated right before our eyes. So when they lied to get Joe Biden across the finish line, like saying, oh, he had no connections with his son's business deals, we knew that was a lie. People that know Joe Biden knew the guy was corrupt for years. The Obama administration had problems with Hunter Biden years ago. Years ago. So people that are in the know, people that do what we do, people that are in the politics, we knew the Biden family was corrupt a long time ago. Now, I didn't know the extent. I didn't think it was $50 million worth of corruption, but I certainly knew Joe Biden was a sleazy, fake, phony, career fraud of a politician. So that's not news. But this is when it really started getting serious. And God bless Elon Musk for buying Twitter. Was when they started censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story. And then this corrupt intel, these former intel agents like Brennan and Clapper, who now work for the government again, no accountability, no lessons learned, no nothing. They're just going to try and do it again. When they censored that story, that was them essentially picking sides. Anyways, so Twitter files released after Musk's takeover of the platform revealed secret blacklists of conservative users. The U.S. government was heavily involved in Twitter's censorship of American citizens. The Biden regime was subsequently sued for colluding with big tech to silence American citizens. The Missouri and Louisiana and Gateway Pundit v. Biden First Amendment lawsuit challenging the government's collusion with big tech to suppress the speech of millions of Americans is headed to the Supreme Court. Of course, John Harwood teed up Joe Biden with a softball. Here, listen to the interview of John Harwood and Joe Biden. Here, check this out.
What about what Elon Musk has done to Twitter, lowering guardrails against misinformation? Does that contribute to it?
Yeah, it does. Look, one of the things, as I said to you, when I thought I wasn't going to run, I was going to write a book about the changes taking place. And most of it's directed over the years for these fundamental changes in society by changing technology. Mm-hmm. Gutenberg printing and the printing press changed the way Europeans could talk to one another, all the way to today. Where do people get their news? They go on the internet. They go online. And you have no notion whether it's true or not.
It's funny that he mentioned the printing press in Europe, because the way the Democrats are acting right now, if they were around back then in Europe, they would have been the ones stopping the printing press, because that's essentially what they're doing now to the internet. They're the ones that would be stifling speech back in Europe during the rise of actual media, actual news. The Biden administration would have stopped the printing press, or they would have switched the printing press to essentially print what they wanted it to print. Approved messages, approved news. There's no doubt the Democrats are the party of censorship. There's no doubt. These are the people saying speech is violence and that. Trust me, if these people could, they would strip your First Amendment from you like that. They wouldn't care. Only the approved narrative would go out. I have to say, folks, I got a strike on my YouTube account. And they give you an option of doing nothing and taking the strike. And then if you get another one within 30 days, they essentially suspend you. And then if you get another one, they ban your account. Well, I got to be honest, and they give an option to where if you want to take a training course on community guidelines, then they'll remove that strike after 30 days or something like that. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? I want to check out this training course. Let's see it. Ladies and gentlemen, it was like a modern-day struggle session. It was a high-tech struggle session is what it was. I'm not joking. They would ask these questions, and they would give multiple-choice answers. And then in the questions, it was like, so Susie tells her listeners that vaccines are bad. Is this considered violating our community standards? Then you go down the answers, and the answers are like, no, it's not violating community standards because. And then it'll be like, yes, it is violating community standards because. And those are the options it gives you, and you have to pick one of the answers. And then there's 7 questions like that. Ladies and gentlemen, it is weird. I felt like I was part of like some North Korean struggle session. I mean, it was weird, man. Like it was literally trying to change the way that you think. The way that the questions were formed and the answers were formed and the way that, and, you know, towards the end of the questions, there's 7 questions. Towards the 6th or 7th question, they started getting a little bit more complex and a little bit more detailed. So you really, really had to think of what your answer was going to be. It was a modern day, high-tech struggle session. It was bizarre, I have to say. I mean, the whole time I'm taking, obviously I passed the community, I passed their test for approved speech for their platform. I can't believe I'm saying these words, man. I can't believe I'm saying words like, oh, well, I passed YouTube's test for approved speech on their platform. I can't believe I passed their test for the words that I can say to people. It's, man, I'm telling you, and it is just the beginning of where these people really want to take this country. Make no mistake about it. If they could, they would strip your First Amendment to where you could not mention anything about the Joe Biden. You couldn't mention anything about his son. You couldn't say anything bad about the Democrats. You could say all the bad stuff you wanted about their opposition. It would be bad. So they would strip your First Amendment. They would definitely strip your Second Amendment. And then they would strip your Fifth Amendment. You would have no due process. You would have no innocent until proven guilty. You would not be able to have a lawyer representing you. It would be straight up like a communistic dictatorship. It would be an autocracy. Mobocracy is what it would be. It would be autocratic rule with mobocracy. So, I mean, listen, and also if they had their way, they would completely rig our elections. They would allow every single person with a smartphone to be able to vote right through their phone. And so essentially they can just control whatever the elections are. They can control the results. This is what these people have shown they want to do. This is something you can see what they're doing. These are things they've actually done. So they are the party of censorship. They, by 70%, approve of censorship by the government. They want to take your guns. They straight up tell you, we want your guns. We don't want law-abiding citizens to have guns. They want to remove the guns from law-abiding citizens. And so essentially, and they know that the only people that are going to have the guns are the criminals. They know this. And so, but they still want to take your guns anyways. And then don't get me started with how they're treating Donald Trump. How you see the justice system treating Republicans and Trump supporters right now is exactly the type of system they want. It is exactly the type of justice system they want. To where, they get the right judge. It gives the appearance of justice. It's justice on the outside. It's a facade. So it appears like justice. You go through the motions. It appears like you have due process. It appears like you have representation. It appears like you have rights in the justice system. It appears like justice is equal and blind, but it's not. The entire damn system would be rigged for them to give them the right outcome. And so essentially you can have a completely innocent person being on trial, and if they felt like you were guilty, if the mob felt like you were guilty, they would deem it so. They would say this person is guilty in the eyes of the public, so therefore that person's guilty, send them away. This is how these people want to rule. This is why you see them mobbing at judges' homes. They protest judges, and even though it's illegal, it's against the law. The DOJ don't do anything about it. Nobody's getting arrested for protesting Justice Kavanaugh, even though he that almost led to his family's assassination when you had somebody climb through the window to go and murder him and his family. Did that stop him? Did Merrick Garland come out and say, okay, anybody that's protesting at judges' homes, you will be arrested? No. So this is how the reason why is because they want the mob to intimidate these judges. Why do you think the Democrats are starting these campaigns against Clarence Thomas and Scalia? Why do you think they're on these targeting campaigns, these pressure campaigns, these intimidation tactics? Why do you think they're using these intimidation tactics against Clarence Thomas and other conservative judges? Not Sotomayor, even though she has her own little ethics problem with the books that she forced her staffers to sell. They want to intimidate these judges to get the results they want. This is exactly what mobocracy is. It's autocracy. And so essentially what Democrats want is they want to give off the appearance that you have all your rights. They'll sit there and tell you, oh, yeah, we're for democracy. They'll sit there and tell you, oh, we're the defenders of democracy, when they are actively and knowingly destroying democracy. They will sit there and tell you, oh, there's no fraud in our elections. Our elections are these elections were the cleanest, most safe and secure elections in U.S. history. As you're watching the fraud right in front of your eyes, as you're watching Republican poll watchers being removed from the building, and then the Democrats continuing to count ballots, as you're watching the Democrats stuff pizza boxes in the counting windows so nobody could see what they're doing. But they're going to come out and tell you, oh, it was the safest, most secure election in U.S. history. This is the same thing with justice. This is when these people will sit there and tell you, oh, nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. And then you have Jamaal Bowman pulling a fire alarm in order to obstruct an official proceeding. And that's exactly what he did. And so I got an article here from Red State. It's actually pretty interesting. So this is going to be a big story this week because Democrats are going to have to make a hard choice here. They're actually going to have to hold accountability on a Democrat, which is not easy for them. Listen, when these people say nobody's above the law, what they mean to say is no Republican is above the law. Anybody that toes the line and supports the agenda, no, they're above the law, absolutely. And so that brings me to this article here, Red State. Representative Jamaal Bowman broke the law and he needs to be charged. So as Red State reported, Representative Jamaal Bowman pulled a fire alarm on Saturday in an apparent attempt to obstruct the House from voting on a continuing resolution. That came as both sides attempted to come to an agreement to keep the government from shutting down. Now, video evidence is confirming that Bowman was the culprit. Here is a still image in which the representative is easily identifiable. So, is this really what things have come to? Bowman has made a mockery of his position since joining Congress, shouting at other members in the hallways and generally being an insufferable clown. So what should happen to him after his latest transgression? Well, let's ask Bowman himself. Back in March 30th of 2023, Bowman wrote on Twitter, quote, "No one in this country is above the law, including former President Trump. Being indicted for falsifying business records with hush money is only the beginning of being held accountable for his crimes." I agree. No one is above the law. And because of that, Bowman absolutely needs to be charged for pulling the fire alarm. He allegedly broke at least 2 laws, one federal and one local, with his act. As in just about any municipality, it is illegal to pull a fire alarm under false pretenses. More seriously, though, it is a felony to obstruct a federal proceeding. And guess what? A House vote is a federal proceeding. Here's what 18 U.S. Code subsection 1512 says. Whoever corruptly alters, destroys, mutilates, or conceals a record, document, or other object or attempts to do so with the intent to impair the object's integrity or availability for use in an official proceeding, or otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. The law cited isn't ambiguous. Bowman pulled a fire alarm in an attempt to obstruct and impede an official proceeding. If that was a crime for people charged regarding January 6th, it's a crime for Democrat congressional members. If Bowman is allowed to get away with this, what does that say about our justice system? That regular people get the book thrown at them when they obstruct a federal proceeding, but a member of the ruling class just gets to give a tepid apology through a spokesperson. Further, Democrats, if they had any shame, would work to punish Bowman. He is a joke of a representative and should be treated as such. Will the DOJ and the Democratic Party take action? Don't hold your breath. It is unbelievable how these people blatantly break the law right in front of people and then on the same breath say nobody's above the law. Accuse their other side of what they themselves are guilty of. It is truly, truly incredible. This is unbelievable. They have hundreds of protesters on January 6th being charged with obstructing an official proceeding, a federal proceeding. And they're getting months, years in prison. And this guy just out of nowhere pulls a fire alarm to delay the vote inside Congress. That is obstructing a federal proceeding. And what's going to happen to him? Is he going to go to jail? Probably not. Is he going to get arrested? Probably not. Even though he committed a felony on camera for everybody to see. And he did it, I think, purposely. I think he did it with the intent to delay the vote. And I'll tell you why. It's actually pretty interesting. I got an article here from the Independent Sentinel. And it says Representative Jamaal Bowman's crime was premeditated. So an inside source told Breitbart News that Representative Jamaal Bowman tore down the signs on the door and threw them on the floor before he pulled the clearly marked fire alarm near an emergency exit only sign on a stand. He then ran to a different door on a different floor. That goes to premeditation. The only reason for this would be to delay the vote for the continuing resolution and shut down the government. Democrats would then turn around and blame Republicans. Yep, that's exactly what I think he was trying to do. I think he was purposely trying to shut the government down, for one, by delaying the vote for the continuing resolution, and then he was going to use that shutdown to point at Republicans and blame Republicans for the shutdown. This is how bad these people are, man. These people must be defeated in 2024. If Democrats are not defeated by a landslide, then that would essentially give them the mandate to essentially continue on the destruction that they've been bringing this country for the last 2.5 years. It would essentially affirm to them, like, yeah, the people like what we've been doing the last 2.5 years. Pulling fire alarms to delay votes, persecuting political opposition, saying nobody's above the law while they actually break the law on camera. Like, if these people are not defeated in 2024, it is going to get way worse. Way worse. The beatings will certainly continue for 4 years, and honestly, I don't know if this country can handle another 4 years of this. There's just no way. And so an alarm triggered a full-scale law enforcement and emergency services response, leading to the evacuation of the building. A source familiar with the matter said Bowman casually, as the House was holding open the House Democrats' motion to adjourn vote earlier in the day, walked up to the door and then ripped the emergency signs off and then threw them on the ground. He ripped both of them off the door and threw them both on the floor, the source familiar with the investigation told Breitbart News. Then he leaned into the door and tried to open it, the source added. Then he pulled the fire alarm. When the alarm begins going off, he turned around and ran, going down to the first floor of Cannon and exited out of the different door, then made his way across the street to votes. At no point did he say to anyone, sorry, this is a mistake, or sorry, I pulled the fire alarm by mistake, or anything like that. He didn't say anything to anyone until he was confronted by Capitol Police later. By doing what he did, he caused a whole building to be evacuated. Capitol Police and emergency services need to treat any alarm like a real threat until they know otherwise. In addition to the false report emergency misdemeanor charge, pulling the fire alarm could also possibly constitute illegal obstruction of congressional proceedings, a federal felony, according to the Washington Examiner. Bowman is currently under investigation. And so I want to... Here is MSNBC's misinformation and disinformation report. You ready for this? You guys want to talk about the irony. This is exactly what a fascistic regime would do. Is when they do something illegal, when their side does something they're not supposed to do or breaks the law, they immediately have their media outlets to try and brainwash the people. They go to their propaganda outlets and they release propaganda. They try and downplay the scenario, and that's exactly what MSNBC did. And so here is a post by Glenn Greenwald on Twitter. He says, I know there are going to be even funnier attempts by the media to defend Jamaal Bowman, even though what he's alleged to have done isn't just a crime but a felony under the theories of the January 6th case, but the way they degrade themselves for Democrats like this is hilarious. And here is Yasmin Vosian. I don't know who the hell that is, but here is a woman reporter on MSNBC with a straight face, reports on the fire alarm pulling. Says Congressman Bowman did not realize he would trigger a building alarm as he was rushing to make an urgent vote. Listen to how they tried to play down the felony committed by Bowman. Here, check this out.
There was a mention of Jamaal Bowman, Congressman Jamaal Bowman, and the pulling of some sort of fire alarm. I just want to read for you some of the reporting so you understand what actually went on there. There were some reports that began to emerge about Representative Bowman, who was seen pulling some sort of fire alarm in the Cannon House office building earlier today. We got a statement on that saying Congressman Bowman did not realize he would trigger a building alarm as he was rushing to make an urgent vote. The congressman regrets any confusion, just to clarify some things on that, because I know there was likely some folks kind of scratching their heads wondering what it was they were asking Speaker McCarthy about.
Oh, that's all. That's all. He was, I was just wanted to clarify that in case if there was anybody wondering why this guy would pull a fire alarm to delay the vote. That's all. That's all. Just some confusion. He just pulled down the emergency exit signs and then tried setting off the alarm by opening the door, because that's how most emergency doors work, which means the alarms will go off as soon as that fire door is opened. And when the door wouldn't open, he just pulled the alarm switch, that's all. This bright red switch that says fire alarm on it, he just pulled it on accident. He thought it was a lever to open the door, folks. You didn't know? That's all. That's all he did. He didn't mean no harm by it. He wasn't trying to delay the vote to shut down the government so that he can blame the Republicans. No, he would never do something like that. Democrats know nobody's above the law. So Bowman or any Democrat would never do anything against the law. Ever. Some of the tweets on this stuff, dude, are hilarious. But the funny thing is, Jamaal Bowman knows exactly how fire alarms work. Why? Because Jamaal Bowman was a principal for a school. And we all know how many fire drills schools do. How many fire drills did we have to go through growing up in school? Tons. How does a 5-year-old know what a fire alarm switch is? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you know that uncontrollable urge to hit the big red button? We've all had that thought. I don't care who you are, the thought has crossed all of our minds about what would happen if I pulled that bright red fire alarm switch. They look so cool. Some even got glass in front of them that you can break and then pull it down. We've all thought about it. So surely Jamaal Bowman knows the difference between a fire alarm switch and a switch to open a door, right? A door that had emergency only signs on it until he pulled them down. Surely he knew that was a fire alarm. Oh, man. Incredible. Incredible. So House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said he would have a discussion with the Democratic leader, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, about the Bowman situation. So I'm sure Hakeem Jeffries is going to jump right out of his seat to expel this congressperson for violating the law. The speaker added that he would call for a probe into the matter by the House Ethics Committee. He said, quote, "This is the United States Congress, not a New York City high school. To pull the fire alarm to disrupt proceedings when we are trying to draft legislation to avert a shutdown is pathetic, even for members of the Socialist Squad." Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene ripped for the far-left poll for disrupting Saturday's activities before demanding that the Department of Justice prosecute him for obstruction of an official proceeding. Yep. Jamaal Bowman was a school principal. So Jamaal Bowman, he is very aware how fire drills work. He's very aware what a fire alarm switch looks like. I mean, folks, this is a no-brainer. This is so beyond plausible deniability, it's not even funny. I know this guy probably thinks he's going to get away with this, but this is something that Republicans should not let this man get away with. Jamaal Bowman broke the law. He broke the law. Make him pay. Why is it that these people always think that they're above the law? They always get to break the law, they always get to break the rules, and they're never held accountable. We've seen this 1,000 times. This man went to these doors that had 2 emergency exit signs on them, pulled down the signs, then tried to open the door to set off the alarm. And then when the door was locked, he turned to his left and then pulled the fire alarm lever, setting off the fire alarm. He then runs away and goes out another door, and then only until Capitol Police asks him does he finally say, "Yeah, I did it on accident because I thought it was a lever to open the door." Nobody's buying it. There is no freaking way this guy doesn't know what a fire alarm is. He is a damn school principal, for God's sakes. This guy should be prosecuted for his crimes. He should be held liable for the laws that he violated. How are you going to have hundreds of people locked up in prison right now for violating the obstruction of official proceeding law, which is already ridiculous? This is exactly why these people should not be sitting in prison for that stupid law that they used. But if you're going to use it, if you're going to set that already very low standard, then you need to hold everybody to that standard. This is the problem with what Democrats are doing right now. They are setting the precedent, all in the name of getting Donald Trump and his supporters. They are setting so bad precedent in all of our laws and all of our rules that it's going to be disastrous for this country. Okay, when you have former presidents being prosecuted because of speech, you are setting very, very dangerous precedent. And that's exactly what these people are doing. They are doing it all in the name of getting Donald Trump. Everything they do is to get Donald Trump. But they don't realize the wake of damage that they're leaving behind. And this is exactly why Democrats need to stop. Somebody needs to step up and tell these people enough is enough. Stop with this nonsense. These people are pulling fire alarms to delay a vote, to shut the government down so that they can blame their opponents for doing it. This is insanity. Insanity. And then you're going to let this guy get away with obstruction of an official proceeding? The exact same thing that they charged January 6 protesters for? January 6 protesters are being charged with obstructing the congressional vote that day for the election, for the certification of the election. They're being charged with obstructing that because they went inside the building, they had to stop the vote and leave the building and evacuate. Well, what the hell is the difference between what they did and what this guy did? What? Because he pulled a fire alarm to do it? Ladies and gentlemen, none of the protesters even pulled the fire alarm. Nobody pulled the fire alarm on January 6th. And yet this guy pulls the fire alarm to obstruct an official proceeding and nothing's going to happen to him? When if it's the exact same thing, if not worse, than what the J6 protesters did. This guy needs to be held accountable. If you're going to set the law, if you're going to set these standards, then the standards need to be applied to everyone. And that's exactly what they should do, starting today, Monday, first thing. Investigate this guy, and then arrest him and perp walk his ass to the jail so that he can bail himself out. That's exactly what should happen. And then he should be expelled from Congress for committing a felony. For committing a felony. So here it is, these people get to commit felonies and get away with it. But the other side actually has felonies fabricated, and then they're charged with it, and then trying to send them away for 700 years in a trial. I mean, it's insane that this guy thought he can get away with this, and he probably will. He probably will. So look, I just wanted to get on here and do a quick episode about that. I think it's ridiculous. Everyone's going to be talking about it today. And look, I think this is something we should definitely be pushing on. And so this is why I want you to call DC. I want you to call the switchboard at the Capitol, and I want you to demand your representative, whoever it is, demand that they hold Jamaal Bowman accountable for committing a felony and breaking the law, for obstructing an official proceeding. So here's the phone number, 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. Call them and say, why is Jamaal Bowman is not being charged with obstruction of an official proceeding? Ask them, and have them explain to you why the man's not being arrested for breaking the law. Remember, nobody's above the law, right? That's what they keep telling us, nobody's above the law. But this guy can, on camera, violate the law. And then they say that Donald Trump should be impeached for withholding aid to Ukraine. And then Joe Biden is on live TV withholding aid to Ukraine. I mean, it is wild, man. The standards that the Democrats are setting for this country is unbelievable. It is so damaging what these people have done to this country. So much damage. It is so bad. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for now. I'm going to be putting out a show right after this because this is going to be the one thing everyone's talking about this week. So, Jamaal Bowman absolutely needs to be held accountable for this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you got any questions, hit me up at steventaurielloshow@gmail.com. If you want me to check something out, just let me know. If you could, share, follow the show with your friends and family. We're doing great on Rumble. We're doing pretty good on YouTube. We're getting some views. We're getting some likes. That's always good. We're getting some comments. And so that's great. Keep up the good work. And I'm going to be talking to you guys here in just a little bit. So as always, thank you guys for tuning in. God bless you. God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.